Terry McLaurin is well on his way to being unavailable against the Cowboys on Sunday. An overall update on the Commanders' disheartening injury situation, and what exactly should we be expecting this weekend? Guys, we're back with another live stream. I appreciate everybody who is in the live chat right now. Make sure as you go through this, get the comments in there, get the comments rolling in. If you are in the live chat right now, do me a favor, drop the location. Let me know where you're from. Would love to get a little roll call, see where everybody's at. If you are joining me live, hit that like button as well. We already got a comment from Lazarus. I'm going to take a guess, say this is Lazarus, not Laser Russ. Lazarus says, don't think I make the live stream, so I'm dropping the like in the questions now. We will get to his question in just a moment. But before we do, just to get a little outline of this video, as I mentioned, with where we're at, the latest update from Terry McLaurin sure looks like he's not going to be playing on Sunday yet again. The Commanders' receiver room right now consists of 7 healthy players, 5 of which are from the practice squad. The others being Luke McCaffrey and Jaylin Lane. How is that going to go against the Cowboys? I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and find out. Take a couple of questions before we get into the actual video. So, any players on the defense you think aren't doing well this season because they're covering up for the shortcomings of others? That's it. Enjoy the stream, y'all, and leave a like. Let me circle back to this, as a matter of fact. Let me talk about some of my main points here, and then I'll get back to this. But do take his advice. Follow the advice. Leave the stream a like. So, updates from practice today. Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel were not spotted at the media portion. That's because they did not practice today. The Commanders' official injury report came out. DNPs for both Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. It's not a massive deal that they're missing practice. Deebo specifically, I think the picture is pretty clear. He's not going to practice as long as he has this heel problem, and he's going to play in games. That's kind of where we're at with that. It's not a big deal that Terry missed practice in a vacuum. It's a big deal that Terry missed this practice. So he was a limited participant yesterday at what was described as a bit of a walk-through, jog-through sort of tempo. Today was the speed work. We had heard from Dan Quinn that Thursday practice will give an indication as to who is available for the weekend. Today, Terry was supposed to practice. DQ had told us he was going to practice. They were going to do an evaluation. They said that they had done a game simulation with Terry last weekend, basically meaning that he ran a bunch of different routes as if he were playing in the game, even though he wasn't on the field. Well, you get to today's practice, the indication of who's playing on Sunday, the full speed stuff, and Terry doesn't practice. So, seems to me as if Terry McLaurin's not playing on Sunday. Further confirmation that I probably just can't take Dan Quinn's word for it. I mean, we're at the point where he says Terry's going to practice. It's not as if DQ said, I guarantee Terry's playing on Sunday. All he said was he's going to practice on Thursday. That was 2 days ago, and that didn't even happen. In fact, it might have even been yesterday. I think it was yesterday before practice. He said Terry's going to be at the walkthrough today, and then we'll find out about the speed work on Thursday, and we get this update. So, great. Looks like Terry's not playing, if you ask me. The big question I have now is, did they totally botch this McLaurin situation just the same way they did the Noah Brown one? Noah had already missed his 4 games, and then they moved him to IR. That's a disaster. If Terry doesn't play on Sunday, that is his 4 games. And how close to a turn are we really? It's not like he went through today's practice at full speed and then said, hey, I'm close, but I've got some discomfort. Or maybe he re-aggravated something doing the speed portion. He couldn't get from the walkthrough to the speed work. So how close is he really to getting back out on the field? If you can't even attempt a speed workout the week that you're supposedly in contention to play, I just don't think he's playing Sunday. I don't know if he's playing next Sunday. It doesn't sound like he's that close if I'm taking this injury report for what it actually is saying. Now, like I mentioned, 5 of the Commanders' 7 healthy receivers are from the practice squad. Do you want to hear the guys? You want to hear the guys that practiced today? Luke McCaffrey, Jaylin Lane. Those are the non-practice squad receivers who are healthy. After that, it's Robbie Chosen, Chris Moore, Ja'Cory Brooks, Tay Martin, and Jacoby Jones. One of those guys is a rookie. One of them got 5 snaps in week 1. 5 of them are from the practice squad. Like, come on. That's the state of the receiver room. CeeDee Lamb just got cleared in full for the weekend. So not only is he playing, he's not on a pitch count. So you've got Dak Prescott at an MVP level, George Pickens on pace for like 1,500 yards and 17 touchdowns this season, and CeeDee Lamb with no restrictions. And your plan to battle against those gentlemen is to send out Jayden Daniels with Chris Moore and Robbie chosen against the Cowboys' high-scoring, high-powered offense, the shootout in Dallas, America's game of the week. That's where we're at right now. Sounds like so much fun. But don't worry, it gets even worse. So the team has already used Tay Martin's 3 eligible elevations from the practice squad. So if they want him to play on Sunday, which you would assume he would, he's been the top guy, the top reserve. Actually, that's not true. The top reserve has been Chris Moore. But Tay Martin has been next in line. You would assume they want him to play on Sunday if Noah Brown's not playing, if Terry McLaurin's not playing, and with Deebo banged up, still think he's going to be on the field, but how healthy is he actually going to be? You would think they want Tay Martin on the field, but because they used his 3 practice squad elevations already, they've got to sign him to the active roster if they want him to play. So that means they have to keep a spot clear. And when we're talking about Sam Cosmi potentially returning from PUP, if they need a spot for Tay Martin, and Tay Martin is not more important than Sam Cosmi, obviously, but the Commanders have 9-10 healthy offensive linemen right now. If they don't have Tay Martin, they might only be able to dress 4 or 5 receivers, the majority of them off of the practice squad. This is how dire the situation is right now. So what it sounds like, unless they drop someone else off the team, it sounds like they're probably going to have to hold Cosmi on PUP, have him make his return in week 8, and Tay Martin gets signed to the active roster and gets elevated. That means that if that happens, there would be 2 other eligible elevations. Chris Rodriguez Jr. did not practice today, had 1 snap in the game on Monday, and that's because he entered the game injured, re-aggravated the injury on his 1 play out on the field, and he's not practicing right now. So if C-Rod is also out, now you might get Chase Edmonds elevated alongside whoever else it might be. But then we're going to get to this in just a second. But on the defensive side, Sheldon Day is going to be in heavy contention to get elevated too. So I don't even know. This is just such a giant mess. This has gotten so messy so quickly, and it seems like we just can't get a positive update on the health front right now. Now, I was and still really am hoping to see Terry McLaurin against the Cowboys, but it just sounds like it's not going to happen. And one thing that I've been surprised by is people have used the discussion about Terry getting injured because he wasn't at camp. There's a lot of people out there who think that, and I certainly think that it played a part in it. I think if you're not going full speed, getting ready for NFL games with your coaches, with your teammates, you're probably not ready to play NFL games. So am I surprised the first time Terry is really he's not in his best shape possible? Am I surprised that's the first time in his career he suffers like some sort of month-long plus injury? No, of course not. But what I've been surprised by is people have used that conversation to twist it and criticize Adam Peters for not getting the deal done earlier in the offseason. And to that, I would say, look at the deal Terry signed. It might look, and this is all big money, obviously, but we're talking relative to NFL standards here. It might look like a massive deal. It's not. He got significantly less guaranteed money than anybody expected. The cap hit is favorable for the team the first 2 years. There's a potential out, I want to say, for $18 million, and then his cap hit transitions to $35 million. So it's very clear the team wanted to give him less guaranteed money, make him sign this deal, which essentially allows them to cut him after 2 seasons before they take on the big cap hit. It was a team-friendly deal, one that he didn't want to sign. But the fact he ultimately did sign it tells you the team twisted his arm into doing it. So they weren't going to overpay to get him to sign. And this is the big thing. Let's remember, Terry McLaurin was not a free agent. Terry McLaurin was under contract. He was obligated to show up at practice. He got called out by Cliff Kingsbury for it. He got fined $50,000 for every day that he missed. This conversation, I understand. A lot of people out there love Terry. Heck, I don't quite know where I'm at with Terry right now. I had the emotional connection with Terry. Pretty much all of us did. But let's not act like we are the Washington McLaurins. This is Commanders. This is the team. Terry was under contract to play for the team. He did not show up. And now because he's injured, we're reverse engineering that to say this is Adam Peters' fault? Give me a break. Should have traded Terry during the draft. Yeah, it looks more and more like that. For everybody out there who would say, well, Tom Brady didn't need the biggest names in the world. Tom Brady got it done with Chris Hogan and these other players. Tom Brady did. To look at a rookie quarterback after one season and say, oh, he can do what Tom Brady did. I've made the argument that's wildly unfair. As much as I love Jayden Daniels, and heck, if all goes well, Jaden's going to be just as good, if not better than Tom Brady. Well, he's going to win 7 Super Bowls. That's all. That's the best case scenario. But to put those expectations on him, I was the one saying it's a rookie quarterback going into his second year. You still want to give him his favorite target. You want to give him a legit number one receiver. Now that I've seen Jayden the last couple of weeks, I'll be honest, I am starting to rethink that. Now, I was never in the pay Terry $30, $35 million camp. No, I was always holding the line. I was saying, let's really not go that far above like $27 million is kind of my max. Even that looks like I might have been wrong. It looks like I could have made a mistake on that. And now, looking ahead, when we get to the end of the spring, and we got to see how the season finishes up, but when we get to next spring, with everything being where it's at right now, with what I've seen from Jayden, with Terry's health already deteriorating now that he's crossed that age 30 milestone, the very thing he argued would not happen to him, the very thing he said, no, this is why you pay me, because I'm always available. Where I'm at right now, it feels like Terry can't be on this team next year. Things can change. I'm open to change before the end of the season, but that's where I'm at right now. This is nothing short of a dumpster fire. I hate to say it. This looks like a mirror from the Daniel Snyder days. That's a very sobering thought. It's a very sobering thought. It's a little different in the sense that I have trust in our leadership, but Adam Peters specifically. I'm at odds with the coaches right now. I have confidence they will do most of the right things. We're just in a spot right now where it's not working. And so it does look and feel like that. And as a fan base, we have PTSD. We're not, if we were fans of the Chiefs right now and everything that's going on with Josh Simmons, I posted a video about that earlier today. They're probably thinking to themselves, hey, we're going to work it out. If players get injured, we're going to make some trades. We're going to figure it out. That's because they've had 6, 7, 8 years of winning. They have a good GM. They have a historic coach. They can have confidence and say, our default is to be optimistic. As Commanders fans, our default is to be pessimistic because we all have PTSD. Am I tripping, or did Dallas just sign CJ Gardner-Johnson? Well, why don't we go find out? Gardner-Johnson. I am not seeing anything about that. Oh, well, that's probably because I spelled his name wrong. CJ Gardner-Johnson. I am not seeing anything about that. Try one more source here. Yeah, I can't find anything about that. If I'm missing this, can you guys do me a favor? Put it in the chat, because I don't see it out there. CJ Gardner-Johnson, I will say this. When you get traded by the Super Bowl champions, when you then get released, and I get an injury played into it, but supposedly he was being a bad locker room guy, you sign somewhere else, they immediately trade for a safety after they just signed you, and then they released you. It does say something about this player. So, not saying that Dallas, the secondary, is great right now, but if he signed there, I wouldn't look at that like, oh no, how are we going to move the ball anymore? And I don't want us signing him either. I know the secondary concerns we've got. We don't need CJ GJ. You should try Matthew and Gabby Shorts videos, JD5, like you should try Terry McLaurin next year. What do you mean, like you should try Terry McLaurin? What do you mean by that? Give me some more details. I'm not understanding. Yeah, this doesn't look good. Chris Moore and Robbie Chosen could be wide receiver. Yeah. Chris Moore was already wide receiver number 1. We saw it on the first play against the Bears. He was the X receiver. And the first play might have gone to him. Might have been a pass to Chris Moore, but he was the X receiver on the first play. He's going to be for the foreseeable future. If Terry was out, but Noah Brown was there, it would be him. He would be playing X. Not that he would be the number 1 target, but he would be playing that X spot. But without Noah, without Terry, yeah, it's going to be Chris Moore. Like I said, we should trade Terry McLaurin next year. Got it. Yeah, the way we're at, the position we're at right now, that's what it looks like. And again, I'm trying not to make these long-term conclusions off of the short-term right now, because right now we're in a pit. We win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. We can't get out of our own way. Everybody's injured. The some of the hatred towards the coaches is high. I'm not trying to live in this emotional moment to make a long-term judgment. But when I say with where we're at right now, if we get to the end of the year and this is a 500 football team and the faith hasn't been restored in the coaches and Terry comes back and then he doesn't produce all that much or he continues to get injured, then yes, that should absolutely be on the cards and it should probably be a priority. Why are they making more wide receiver number one when they have Luke right there? It's about a certain level of comfort with running different types of routes, the physicality. I know Luke has the frame for it. He is 6'2". He's not quite as big as Chris Moore. At least that's not how it appears. Now, Chris Moore didn't block very well, so I will say that's something in Luke's favor because Luke does do that stuff well. I heard from Cliff Kingsbury, me personally, like I called Cliff. We all heard from Cliff Kingsbury during his press conference today. Someone had asked him, hey, how do you balance with these injuries trying to make sure that you still have veterans on the field like a Chris Moore, but then how do you balance that with also trying to get Luke and Jaylin Lane and these other guys more reps? And Cliff said it is a constant thought that he has, but he's been impressed by them and they're going to continue trying to feed them more and more. So I am hoping to see a lot of Luke on Sunday. Luke now has, I think it's 4 straight weeks where he's made some really impressive plays. So would like to see him. I'm going to read a couple more here, and then I'm going to get back to some of the script that I had. We should get rid of Terry and Lattimore. Don't think many people would disagree with you. And then we have to go against the Cowboys on Sunday. Yeah, to save the season, I would argue. With just where the emotions of the fan base are at right now, considering it is the Cowboys on the road, a loss would be pretty devastating. So back to what I was talking about with the injuries. More injury updates for you. Remember how I said that Dan Quinn said today was going to really be it was going to paint a picture on the availability of different players for Sunday? Well, he said that when he had been asked about Dorrance Armstrong, because Dorrance, I think it was a hamstring injury he suffered on Monday, played through it, got a sack, but then he either wasn't present at the walkthrough or he was a limited participant. DQ said, we're going to see how he does on Thursday. That's going to give me an indication if he's going to play or not. So that comment was about Dorrance Armstrong. Well, just like he said Dorrance Armstrong was going to practice on Thursday, Dorrance Armstrong did not. Or sorry, just like he said Terry McLaurin was going to practice on Thursday, Dorrance Armstrong did not. So Dorrance is currently 5th in the NFL in sacks. He's either got 5.5 or 6 through 6 games. If you go back to the playoffs, I think he's at like 9.5 sacks in his last 9 games. He's been on fire. He's going back to Dallas. That's obviously where he played. Looks to me like he's not playing. I'm not reporting inside information. I'm just saying if Thursday indicates if players are playing on Sunday or not, and Dorrance doesn't practice on Thursday, I have been told A plus B, B plus C, A is C. So I have been told this is what I need to look at. I'm looking at it. He's not practicing. He's not playing. That's where I'm at with this. If that does happen, this is one of the scariest sights that I've ever seen. If that happens, the Commanders are going to go to Dallas. Dallas having this elite offense. Matter of fact, why don't I look up the numbers? Let's see exactly where Dallas is in points per game. I would imagine they're top 3. They are 3rd. Okay, so they're at 29.7 points per game. The Colts leading the league. That's crazy. And then the Lions at number 2. Okay, how about yards per play? Where are we at with Dallas? Dallas is number 4 in the league in yards per play at 6. And then let me check one more thing here. Want to check their EPA per play. Dallas is number 1 in the league in EPA per play. So that's a measure of scoring efficiency. So number 4 in yards per play, number 3 in points per game, number 1 in EPA per play. That is the offense that you're about to face. That is, oh, by the way, adding CD Lamb to everything they already have. So if Dorrance Armstrong does not play in this game, are you guys ready for this? The Commanders' edge room is going to be Von Miller, Jacob Martin, Preston Smith, and Jalen Holmes. That's who you're going to have on the edges of the defensive line trying to get pressure on the quarterbacks. Now, obviously that's bad, but it's a lot worse. It's a lot worse than you think. So now, why don't I look up some pressure rates? Give me 1 second here. QB pressure rates. Commanders were number 1 in the NFL at one point. So through, what are we, 6 weeks of football? So through 6 weeks of football, the Commanders are tied with the Seahawks for 3rd in pressure rates generated on quarterback. With that rotation of Von Miller, Jacob Martin, Preston Smith, and Jalen Holmes, I have a slight feeling they're not going to be generating all that much pressure. Now, why is that so bad? So I was reading an article by Bill Barnwell talking about some potential trade targets, and I saw these numbers, and it really confirmed everything that I've been seeing with my own eyes. I am a stats guy. Sometimes I find stats, but I'm also an all 22 guy. I'm also intently watching the game guy. I don't put all my eggs into one of those baskets. Things confirm, they work together in unison. Everything confirms itself, or confirms each other for itself. I've made a mess of that, but I don't just look at numbers and say, okay, this is what I need to go off of. I don't just watch the game and say, this is it. I find everything together. So my eyes had seen this. The numbers just confirmed it for me. So I was having a conversation with someone in the comment section. I think this was on my video of the Bears game recap. And I had said at one point that when Caleb was given time in the pocket, he was picking apart the Commanders' zone defense. And someone had commented and saying, well, hey, it's an NFL quarterback. Anyone who's given time in the pocket can pick apart zone coverage. And to a certain extent, I see what you're saying, more so than man coverage, more so than when they're pressured, of course. But it's different with the Commanders. So if we're looking at yards per attempt allowed, so yards per pass play allowed for opposing quarterbacks, when the Commanders generate pressure, they are 6th in the league in that category. They allow just 2.4 yards per attempt. When they do not generate pressure, they are dead last in yards per attempt. They fall from 6th with pressure to 32nd without pressure. The yards per attempt goes from 2.4 to 10.2, just to illustrate the difference that exists there. So one more time, you're going to walk in to face arguably the best offense in the NFL that's getting CeeDee Lamb back, and your edge rushers who basically control. It's not the secondary. The secondary doesn't determine what happens on the back end. It's the defensive line. It's the pressure generation. Your most important players on that defense are going to be Von Miller, Jacob Martin, Jalen Holmes, and Preston Smith. I'll be honest, I was looking at the odds for this game earlier. The Commanders have been favored by 1.5 pretty much since the opening. After the CD news, with this Dorrance update, with this McLaurin update, I was fully expecting to see the Cowboys favored by about 2 to 3 points. Hasn't happened. Commanders still favored by 1.5, but I am concerned about it, to say the very least. How much is our 2026 projected cap? That's a good question. Let's go see. It's going to be high, but that's because we have the third most maybe free agents. So the Commanders are expected to have the 5th most cap space in the NFL next season. And then in 2027, they're 6th. In 2028, they're 9th. But again, they've got top 3. They're in the top 3 for free agents that season, basically all the next 3 years, because they've got all the 1-year, 2-year deals. They've got the rookie contracts from the Rivera era. They're not renewing stuff like that. That is a joke. We need to get pass rushers after the season. Adam Peters needs to do better. Well, Adam Peters, we can't blame Adam Peters for injuries. One thing that I mentioned it a couple of times. Maybe I should have banged the drum harder on it, but nobody really wanted to discuss how important the loss of Deatrich Wise was. Specifically in the run game for me, I know he made some plays in the pass game, but the run game especially, when you go back and you watch the Bears film, there's a lot of people talking about the run fits with Mikey and Quan and the linebackers, and they absolutely should because they were off. And there's conversations about speed. A reporter asked Joe Witt Jr. today about speed and how you prepare for teams that have more speed than you. And Joe Witt Jr. correctly said that speed isn't an issue if we're able to set the edges. That's all fair. Now, because we couldn't, then you saw Bobby Wagner's lack of speed, Frankie Louis's lack of speed, et cetera, et cetera. But it does go back to setting the edges. Deatrich Wise was going to be a pivotal force in setting the edge on the run game because he's a massive man. He's 6'5", 6'6", 280 pounds, good run blocker. When he went out, Dorrance still did a very good job setting the edges, but now he might be out. You saw Jalen Holmes. You saw Preston Smith. Javonte Jean-Baptiste got injured as well. So you saw Jalen Holmes. You saw Preston Smith. You saw Frankie Louvu trying to set the edges against the run when you played the Bears on Monday, and it just didn't work. You don't have the strength. You don't have the size over there, and you don't have the speed in the middle of the field. So as we move forward for the rest of this season, this Commanders run defense that has been greatly improved, was a top 10 run defense, legitimately top 10 run defense for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, until new signings are made or until players get back from injuries, until you get more speed on the field in the middle, which basically means benching Louver or Wagner for McGee, which isn't going to happen. They're just not going to do it. They've made that very clear. I think the Commanders' run defense is probably going to go back to what it was last year. It's probably going to be pretty terrible just because they've lost bodies at important positions and they don't have guys there ready to replace them. Adam did what he could this year Adam did what he could for this year. He actually did a solid job this offseason. These injuries he can't prevent from happening. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. So I want to go back to Lazarus here because he was awesome. He was in here 30, 40 minutes before the stream started, leaving some comments. He said, any players on the defense you think aren't going to do well or doing too well this season because they're covering up for the shortcomings of others. That's it. Enjoy the stream, y'all, and leave a like. Yes, one more time, guys, if you are in here, please hit the like button. Really helps me push this video out there. We want all the Commanders family in here. We want all the comments coming in, so make sure you do hit the like button. Lazarus, to answer this question, and I'm just going to pull up the depth chart in front of me just so it's easier for me to visualize it. So one of the things that I've been saying is that I think Quan Martin is being put in some very unforgiving positions. And don't get me wrong, Quan Martin's been bad. He's actually one of the key players that I want to talk about in just a moment here. But I do feel like there's been an increased responsibility and a burden really that's been placed on his shoulders. The Commanders came into the season saying we are a cover one man coverage team. That means Quan Martin is up there, single high. He's responsible for everything. Everything that goes deep, he's got to be privy to it. Oh, and you've got to come down and play the run as well. When the man coverage stuff wasn't work, when Marshawn Lattimore was getting cooked, when Mikey Sanderson was getting cooked, we have now pivoted. We're a zone-heavy team, and the zone we're running the most, about 30% of the time, is cover 3. Well, that's still a single high, so Quan is back there in the middle of the field. And with him having to guard that entire post area, combined with Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn repeatedly telling us the reasons the big plays are happening on defense is communication. Well, with Quan having the largest area to cover of everybody back there in defense, if the communication's not on point, if players aren't talking, if they're not pointing, if they're not following, if they're not carrying their responsibilities, Quan, again, not bailing out Quan because Quan has been bad this year, but he has also been put in some very unforgiving positions. So I don't want that to be lost. I think several of these players, I think right now the problem is the defense just doesn't fit together with the way that they're playing. And there's always an answer to every puzzle, but instead of this being a little 50-piece puzzle, this might be 1,000. This might be a 10,000 because you're trying to blend slow linebackers. You only want to play 2 linebackers at a time, and one of those linebackers kind of has to be a pass rusher because I'm talking about Luvu here because he's not very good at going back to playing coverage. Now with these injuries, you also need additional help on the line setting the edge. Your current edge rushers, Dorrance Armstrong not included, they can't really get to the quarterback. On the back end, Lattimore was struggling with pre-snap motion and man coverage, so you go to zone. Now Mike Sainer still is starting to struggle a little bit. You've got Quan going on. Meanwhile, you've got an injury to Will Harris. You've got an injury to Percy Butler. So you've got a special teamer in Jeremy Reeves trying to get on the field and help out. This team does have talent. I've said that before, and I want to say it again. This team does have talent. There is a way to make it work, but they're not in the best position to succeed right now. This is a situation the coaches caused themselves. They're the ones spewing this team isn't for everybody. We produce the ball. List goes on. They've created this expectation for the fan base. Tim Phillips, that is probably the best comment I've gotten in any live stream. This is so accurate. I always say you are held to the standard that you create yourself. How do I put this? When Jayden Daniels in that first game of the year against the Giants, let me pull his numbers up. Let me pull up Jayden's numbers from game 1 against the Giants. So against the Giants, the Commanders win 21-6. They were favored by, I think, 4.5 points. They covered the spread by a lot, 15 points, whatever the line was. They covered by about 15 points, I want to say. Jayden in that game had 301 total yards, 1 touchdown, no turnover. And as a fan base, we said Jayden didn't play that good today. If Bo Nix had done that, If Caleb Williams had done that, if Drake May had done that, if Michael Penix had done that, you would say, wow, what a way to start your second year. It's because you're held to the standard you create for yourself. Now, I saw what the team was last year, and the defense wasn't good. Defense was not good. But Dan Quinn and Joe Witt didn't tell me the standard was to be bad. They didn't tell me the standard was to be mediocre. And they keyed in on some very nuanced pieces of the game. They keyed in on turnovers. They keyed in on winning time moments. They keyed in on running and hitting and tackling. Well, those pillars that they are preaching, that's arguably where they have fallen the shortest. I'm trying to get the turnover data here. Can I get takeaways per game? So the Commanders this season are 29th in takeaways per game. There are only 3 teams below them. This is for a team that constantly says, produce the ball is life. Last year, the Commanders were 15th. And I'm actually shocked they were that high, although they did play some pretty bad teams. Let's go to winning time moments. Let's go to third down percentage allowed. So this year, they are 11th. Give them credit for that. They are doing better on third down. Last year, they were 16th, so right about league average. And then missed tackle rate, I can't pull that up in front of me right now, but I know Witt said in his press conference today they are 17th in the league, I believe is what he said. 17th in the league in missed tackle rate. I have not confirmed that myself, but that is what he said at his press conference today. But so you've got 17th, which is about average. You've got turnovers where you're one of the worst in the league. And then you've got third down where you're average or just above. So for those to be the 3 things that you've built your identity on, and the best case scenario is about league average, I'm going to judge you off of that. You have told me that's how I'm to judge you, so I will. Adam Peters should be called out. Can you elaborate on why exactly? Called out for what exactly? Hope we get Treylon Burks. He would actually be solid AP. Make sure he doesn't leave without a deal. Treylon Burks thing is weird. I had his numbers written down, and I think I deleted them. So I'll pull up his ESPN tab. So Treylon Burks was a first-round pick in 2022. Comes out as a rookie. He plays in 11 games, catches 33 balls for 444 yards and a touchdown. In his next year, also plays 11 games, only has 221 yards, plays 5 games last year, gets injured, gets cut, 4 receptions for 34 yards. So nowhere near what many thought he would be. He's a big guy, big hands, supposed to be a good goal line threat, especially. Heck, maybe he could fill that role for the Commanders right now, considering 5 of the 7 healthy receivers are practice squad guys. Also got to keep in mind, he was playing with Will Levis, and if I'm a receiver, if I'm a tight end, I don't really want my career judged by my time with Will Levis. So I don't know what Treylon Burks has to offer, but the Commanders just need bodies, simply at this point. So I am hoping they get the Treylon Burks deal done. What's with Witt not utilizing McGee? I think it just comes down to Bobby's their signal caller, and they, in their minds, they can't afford to take him off of the field. They don't feel like speed. That's something Joe Witt Jr. made clear in his press conference today. I think it was Ben Standig who asked him the question. So if it was, shout out to Ben Standig. Joe Witt Jr. made it clear that speed isn't an issue in his eyes right now. And if that's how he feels, of course Jordan McGee's not going to get on the field, because Jordan McGee doesn't read the run better than Bobby. He doesn't know how to tackle better than Bobby. The upside he brings is all related to physicality, and Witt doesn't feel like there's a problem right now. So it's not going to happen. DQ is too much of a player's coach. This team needs discipline. It's just weird. It really is. I feel like Dan Quinn is a great head coach if he has great coordinators. And Cliff has done his part for the most part. I'd say he's done a really good job since he was hired. Witt, we're kind of at odds with, but there's also roster limitations, personnel limitations. Dan Quinn is a good culture guy. He's a good guy to get the team to believe. He will hold people accountable. He will instill these standards, but I don't view him as the guy to tactically take the team over the top. So if the coordinators can't do that, if the position coaches and the coordinators can't develop the players as individuals, it's going to reflect poorly on Dan Quinn. And I think we're starting to see that for the first time as Commanders fans right now. Bobby Wagner is a liability against the pass, but nothing is done about it. So on this note, I'm actually going to go back to some of my notes here, and I'm going to try to pop something up on the screen for you guys. Give me just 1 second here. Share screen. Oh, I closed what I needed to share for you. Give me just a couple of seconds here, guys. I am pulling things up from my Twitter account, my X account now, by the way. It's at CommandersHTT. You can keep up with me over there at CommandersHTT. I'm getting this chart from that right now. Is this what I'm looking for? Yes, it is. Okay, now I just got to share it. Technology is my friend. There we go. You guys should be able to see that pretty well. So what we are looking at right here is when you're in primary coverage. If you're a linebacker dropping back into coverage against a pass, we're looking at how good of a job do you do preventing separation from forming between the pass catching target, could be a running back, could be a tight end, could be a receiver, and then what's your grade at the catch point? How good of a job once the eligible receiver makes the catch, how good of a job do you do from that point on in the play? On your x-axis right here, this is the grade of once the catch is made. Sorry, the y-axis. And then on your x-axis right here, this is the separation score. Can you tell who is right here? I know it's a little small on your phone screen right now. Can you tell who this is right here? This is Bobby Wagner. So for everybody who is out there, everybody who's out there saying they're defending Bobby Wagner, oh, he's a great player, he's third in the league in tackles, and he's doing this thing. I have been nothing short of consistent with this point. Moving forward, Bobby is as good as he has ever been. When he's putting that thing in reverse, he's as bad as he's ever been. I've read some of his scores, like his yards per coverage snap is the second worst of his career. His yards per reception is the lowest of his career. His reception percentage is the worst of his career. All the things going on, and this is proof of it right here. I mean, nobody is even really close to this. Seriously, there's nobody else in his territory. The only people experiencing similar degrees of separation are Fred Warner right here, who we all hold as one of the best, maybe the best middle linebacker in the league. And then the Eagles do it again. Jihad Campbell was my favorite prospect of the entire first round. Not that I would have taken him first, but I would have taken him as high as like 7th or 8th. I loved Jihad Campbell because he's a linebacker who can line up on the edge and get you 8 to 10 sacks in a season, but then he can drop back and be elite in pass coverage. Oh, and he's a physical freak who runs like a receiver. This is what happens. Jihad Campbell right here. Everybody wants to talk about the Eagles. I hate that they do it, but they do a good job of drafting every year. They did it again right here. Meanwhile, we're stuck down right here. So think about the differences between the defenses. When you think of the Eagles, and they're not playing great right now, but their worst, them bottoming out, is them having like the 12th best defense. They don't really have limitations. They're just learning how to play together. This is a limitation right here. And I'm not ungrateful for everything that Bobby Wagner has done for the Commanders and done for the NFL in general, but that is a limitation right there. So if you ever needed a visualization of what the Commanders are trying to overcome, there it is right there. And now I've got my screen all messed up. I think that's where I was. Okay. Joe said they were 17th in the league, which was 12% missed tackle rate. He said they can get to 11%. They would be in the top 10. Yes, he did. And that's actually probably correct, but I have an issue with the phrasing of this. I was getting into it with a guy on Twitter about Matt Gay, actually. So I wish I had the numbers. I'm not gonna bother scrolling. Yeah, I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna bother scrolling to find it. But basically, I had tweeted a response to somebody who said that Matt Gay is not the issue. He's made 8 of his last 9 or whatever he said, and the miss was a doink. I said, it's one thing to say that Matt Gay. It's one thing to say there's no free agent available better than Matt Gay, which is probably true, unfortunately. It's another thing to say Matt Gay isn't an issue. And then I went on to list why. I said he's 35th in the league in field goal percentage. The guy had specifically mentioned that Matt Gay leads the league in attempts from 50-plus yards. And I said, well, he's kicking 57% on those attempts. The league average is 71.5%. He's 4 of 7. And the guy replied and said, well, if that doink was a make, he would be at 71%, which is league average. And my response to that was, yeah, that's true. But think about what you're saying. You're saying if he did a better job, he would be better. Well, no shit. Okay, I'm sorry. No kidding. If you do what you're supposed to better then you're going to look better. So yes, Tim Phillips, and I'm not calling you out, obviously, you know that. But when Joe Witt Jr. says this, when he says they're at 12% and they could be top 10 with 11%, well, this game is margins. It's not like the difference between 17 to 18 is 25% and they're holding on to that top pack and it's made to look like they're far away when they're actually pretty close. No, there are tight margins all across the league. For example, how about we look at like, I don't know, what's a good example of something that has tight margins? If you're looking at percentage, interception percentage for quarterbacks. I know that's a weird stat. And of course, I can't find it when I need it. Your MVP candidates are going to have like 2%. Your Will Levises are going to have 5%. So that might sound like, hey, whoa, Will Levis, Jake Browning, wow, they're really close. They're only 3% away from being an MVP. It's not how it works. The margins are what they are. I believe Dan Quinn coaching style is more fitting for a younger group of players. I believe that as well. I do believe that it's fit for younger players, but then I also think that there needs to be development of players, which we haven't seen. It worries me that Mike Sainristil is not getting better, and he's in his natural position now, supposedly. It worries me that we're not seeing Ben Sinnott really get better. He's flashed as a run blocker, but you already have a run blocking tight end, and that's already a bit of a specialty of itself. Why don't they trade for Chris Olave? DC Mike, if you are upset like most of us with Terry McLaurin's injury situation, if you're upset with Noah Brown's injury history, you're going to have a great time with Chris Olave. That's all I'm saying. He's up there with Tua for who gets concussions the easiest. We need to sever ties with Noah Brown at this point. You got to give us the damn money back. Yeah, really. Noah Brown went to the bank on us. That's for sure. And he didn't ask to get injured. It's not a personal attack of him. But do I want him back on this team? No, absolutely not. I need a receiver who I know is going to be on the field. Do we have any other more comments? We do. Back to my guy Lazarus from early on, before the show even started. 2026 wide receiver free agency looks rough. Bunch of dudes in their late 20s and early 30s. Since defense will probably be the focus of the draft, any thoughts on how to improve the wide receiver room going forward? Good question. I've liked what I've seen from Luke McCaffrey these last few weeks. I want to see more snaps from him. He might not be the answer, but I want to see him get the workload for me to then have confirmation he's not the answer. It's what I've said with Jordan McGee. It's what I've said with Ben Sinnott. And Luke has been on the field more than them. But right now, I don't know that Jordan McGee is bad at football. I don't know if he's good at football. I don't know because I don't see him on the field, so I can't make a judgment off of it. With Luke, let me see him out there for 50, 60% of snaps instead of just 33. But to answer the question, Luke's got to produce. Jaylen Lane's got to produce. I think they just have to continually invest in the draft at receivers. Not saying to use it with their first pick. In fact, there's basically no world in which I do that. I think you spend the first pick on a receiver or on a defensive player, but second, third, fourth round, basically every year until you got this thing overflowing like the Buccaneers do, I would constantly be reinvesting in that wide receiver position. So we looked at the Quan Martin. We looked at the Bobby Wagner chart. Now I want to show you a Quan Martin chart, which means I got to share my screen again. And I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. Did the person who posted delete it? Because all of a sudden, what happened here? Okay. I have the chart. Now I just got to share the screen. Okay, I can do this. You guys got that? You do, yes. Oh, and I'm sorry. There we go. So let me get this pulled up in full screen. Bam, that's what I was trying to do. So it's the same exact premise as the chart I was just showing you with linebackers. This axis right here is the separation score, separation prevented really for the receiver. And then this is the on-ball grade. Once the catch is made, how good of a job do you do? Up here is Kyle Hamilton, best safety in the league. Dude is an absolute freak. Here's Derwin James. Here's Minkah Fitzpatrick. Here's Brian Branch. Here's Quan Martin. Earlier in this video, I was answering Lazarus's question, which was, do you think there are players who are being made to look worse than they actually are because they're being asked to do more because of the overall deficiencies of the roster? And I said Quan Martin's being put in bad positions, but he also is just not doing a good job. This isn't even factoring things like tackle rate. Quan Martin has missed 19% of his tackles this season. That is a career high. And just to put in perspective, Kane Medrano, the sixth round linebacker from UCLA, converted wide receiver. Everything about him is he's fluid. He can drop back into coverage. He's got a great athletic profile. He just doesn't know how to tackle. Kane Medrano's missed tackle rate at UCLA last year was 23%, which is super high. I'm not defending Kane Medrano. I'm saying Quan's at 19%. So we're not all that far away. And this is where Quan Martin is at right here. So when you've got statistically right now the worst coverage safety in the NFL, the worst coverage linebacker in the NFL, Marshawn Lattimore, credit where credit is due. Good last couple of games, although the effort on that Swift touchdown was pathetic. He's been better the last couple of games, but he started the year really slow. Mike Sainristil is having a bad year. It's just no wonder the defense looks the way it does. Simply put, nobody's in the right spot. Nobody's doing the things they're supposed to. The communication is off. They're not tackling. There has to be serious, tangible changes with this defense before we can even start to consider the Commanders as contenders, because they're not going to be if it's not Jayden Daniels pulling a rabbit out of the hat every time. And this transitions well to Joe Witt Jr.'s press conference today. I got to say, I have so much respect for Joe Witt Jr. as a man, because he says the right things. He's accountable. He's present. He's aware. He's very intelligent. He's an active listener. He has all of these incredibly positive qualities. And unlike Dan Quinn, where you ask Dan Quinn a question, he's going to give you the same answer that you've heard 1,000 times before. It doesn't really matter what your question is. You could ask him about a player. You could ask him about a quarter. You could ask him about a play. You could ask him about a win, a loss. Every answer is going to sound the same. You're going to get the same buzzwords. You don't get that with Joe Witt Jr. He will answer your questions. He'll say things like, this is what happened on that specific play. This was the schematics. This is what went wrong. I need to do a better job of putting the players in positions to succeed. I need to do a better job of teaching them. Today, he said, we're doing different drills to teach them how to force turnovers. He's all over everything, which makes it even more confusing and frustrating for me that we keep hitting our head on the same ceiling with the defense. Like we've already talked about, the missed tackles, the turnovers, everything like that. Joe Witt is fully aware of what is going wrong. He is making changes. He literally on the practice field, he's doing different drills. On the field, he's calling different plays. Again, I've said this before. The Commanders' defensive scheme has shifted entirely from what it was just 6 weeks ago. So he's doing all these things, yet it's not translating. So it just makes me more confused, and it makes me want to look at the players more. But in certain respects, why would I look at Bobby Wagner as far as understanding a scheme and being able to digest it and read what's happening on the field? Bobby Wagner should be one of the first picks in NFL history to understand a scheme. I'm not going to look at some of your younger players, your Mike Sainristills, these guys that you have made captains for different games and are leaders of your team, and they're your top young draft picks. Marshawn Lattimore, I get it. He's frustrated right now. He was Defensive Player of the Year, the candidate at one point. So it just puts me in this never-ending cycle of, I don't know who's at fault. I don't know what's going on. Is it players, is it coaches? It's kind of a little bit of everything right now. That's where I'm at with this team. I listened to you over John Com and Kevin Sheehan. No fluff in your game, and you respect what people say, even if it differs from your thoughts. Keep it up, please. Hey, Tim, look, I love having you here. You know that. We talk in the comments all the time. I appreciate you. And then look, I got respect for those guys too. I'm not here to throw dirt on anybody's name, and there's things that I don't do well. Those guys probably have more inside information than I do. So there's a place for everything. I just like putting my thoughts out there where I can. But I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate everybody else as well. Danny F, should they sit Mikey? So I have seen this come up as a topic of conversation lately. Jonathan Jones opened the 21-day window on him. He was a full participant in practice today, considering today was the speed portion, and that could be the indicator of who's playing on this weekend. Jonathan Jones was a full participant. Now, whether or not he gets a spot with everything that's going on at receiver and then potentially having to sign Tay Martin to the active roster, I don't know. So this could be a question that maybe gets delayed for a week or two, depending on how Jones's recovery goes. But when he is back, Noah I is really not getting on the field. They don't seem to really want him out there. So should they sit Mikey, it would probably be Jonathan Jones taking his spot. Earlier in the year, we were talking about Mikey potentially taking Lattimore's spot outside the numbers, Jones or Noah I going to the slot and Lattimore's on the bench, the answer to the question, or my answer to the question is, look, Sandersville's not having a good year. Anybody who wants to say, well, he has the 2 interceptions, he did do that, but he's also he's also missed some tackles. He's been out of position. He's given up some receptions. He's not done a great job in coverage. So there are holes everywhere. And yes, Mikey's not playing well, but really nobody in the back 7 aside from Trey Amos is playing well right now. So no, I don't think you sit Mikey. I think maybe you find ways to put him in different spots. And heck, maybe you even revisit moving him outside. But yeah, Mikey's not playing well, but Lattimore wasn't really playing well, and Quan Martin isn't playing well, and Jeremy Reeves last couple of weeks has not been playing well, and Frankie Louvu hasn't been playing well for the most part, and Bobby Wagner has been playing well for the most part. So really what's got to happen is people just have to get on the same page. And that goes back to coaching. If I'm to put Joe Witt Jr. back in this, coaches are teachers. They'll put you in the spots you're supposed to be in, but once the ball is snapped, you have to know what to do. And that goes back to how you're taught, what you're instructed, how the communication is. And that personally, more than scheme, more than play calling, more than anything else, me with my outside perspective, not being on the practice field, for them to always reference communication as being what's going wrong with the team, well, that's taught by your teacher, who is your coach. So that would be where my biggest personal issue is with Joe Witt Jr. Who gives the shit about Terry? I think most Commanders fans, to be honest, Mo, sorry. Whether they like him, whether they don't, Terry is kind of the story of the season right now. He's the story of the entire offseason. He's making a lot of money. So, yeah. Wow, I'm blown away by all this information. I have the mindset of all of the defense has to do is put 4 quarters together and Jayden will be Jayden. Well, that is the simple way to put things right now. If we want to be brutally honest with ourselves, we are sending Jayden Daniels out there to die on Sunday. Not literally, but we are putting out a defense that is totally incompetent, down several players, assuming Dorrance Armstrong doesn't play, down several players at the most important positions on the defense, send them out there against the number 1 offense in the NFL that's adding CeeDee Lamb back. Meanwhile, we're putting our franchise quarterback out there with 5 practice squad receivers. So yes, this is a very simple way to look at it, but it's simple because it's correct. Jayden is going to go out there and he's going to be Jayden, and the defense has to try to make a play. They have to try to get one stop. Seriously, one stop. Oh, and Jayden, by the way, don't forget, Jayden, you have to score a touchdown because you can't kick. Your kicker is 35th in accuracy in a league with 32 teams. I'm not going to say anymore. I've said it all already. We're all those people that were laughing at us when we said, hold up on signing Terry. There were a couple more who made fun of for their huge money deal. If we traded him, the best we get is a 3. Right now, yes, 100%. This offseason, you maybe had a chance at a 1. Probably wouldn't have happened. You definitely could have gotten a 2 this offseason. By the time we get to, I don't think they're going to trade Terry before the deadline, A, because I don't think they'll want to, because they have already made this initial investment in him, and B, they'll probably know his value is going to be as low as it ever is, considering he's coming off of this injury. So I would assume they're going to try to revisit trading him in the offseason. And at that point, a 3, I'm with you. That's the best they're going to get. I would honestly think more of a 4. And this is hindsight. Hindsight is 2020. But when you go back and you look at some of the trade packages, anybody who's saying, let's sign Terry McLaurin, that's because you think it's a young quarterback. He needs a number 1 receiver. And also look how good Terry was. You're going to need a top wideout for these shootouts against the high-powered offenses, the Lions, the Buccaneers, etc. And that thought, in theory, works out well. Where we're at right now, seeing how Jayden has looked comfortable even without his receivers, and looking at how pathetic the defense is, what if back in the offseason, when the Steelers were looking to make trades, by the way, Steelers looking to make trades for a receiver again, but before they traded Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Dolphins, what if it was Terry for Minkah and the Steelers added in like a 5th? So they took Terry and we got Minkah in the 5th. It sucks looking back in hindsight because it hurts, because it feels like, oh, it was right there. We could have had it, and we don't. Treylon Burks is expected to sign to our practice squad per Rappaport. Okay, that's good news. Let me just confirm, not that I think you're wrong, but I just want to see it with my own eyes so I can put it up on the screen. That is true. Let me get the let me share my screen up here. Thank you. Thank you, Jumblewary the second. Thank you for sharing that. Get it up on the screen. There we go. Former Titans first round wide receiver. Oh, did I just close? No, I didn't. I lost my tab though, but doesn't matter. You guys can see it. That's all that matters. Former first round wide receiver Treylon Burks is expected to sign with the Commanders practice squad with an elevation likely coming quickly. Burks had visited Washington and the Broncos, a low-risk, high-reward addition. Burks played in a similar offense in college. An elevation coming quickly. So are we saying that Treylon Burks is playing on Sunday? Does he even know the plays? Is Jayden going to tell him in the huddle, hey, here's what you're doing? Good news. You can never have enough bodies, especially with this team and this position group. But, yeah. I also believe we signed the Ron Brown. At least Dyami played in games. I can't co-sign this opinion just because Dyami Brown wanted and got $10 million and the Commanders needed to spend the money elsewhere. It's just too much money. Okay. Do I have anything else written down? Oh, Drake Jackson. Let's talk about Drake Jackson. So for anybody who doesn't know, he was signed by the Commanders on Tuesday, I want to say. He's a former second-round pick, a defensive end of the San Francisco 49ers. As a rookie, he had 3 sacks and an interception in 15 games. The next year, he had 3 sacks in 8 games, suffered a major knee injury. He was then released from the team. The Commanders signed him, again, on either Tuesday or Wednesday. Today, they put him on IR. I've seen a lot of people very confused by that. He did not get injured while practicing with the Commanders or anything like that. This is the same knee injury that he had suffered before. He's still working his way back. I don't even know if he's going to play this year. But the thing about this is almost a free draft pick. Didn't work out in San Francisco, but it was a 2022 second-round pick, a kid who's 24 years old. And the draft report on him was that he's fast, still growing into his body, but has an elite frame. He has multiple moves against the pass, lacks some motor against the run. That's the pre-draft report on him. So it's a free hit at a draft pick. And considering the Commanders only had 5 draft picks last year, considering they've only got 6 next year, even if Drake Jackson doesn't end up playing a down for the Commanders this year, just having him around, getting him healthy, training him, at least gives you a chance to evaluate him. And right now it's valuable because the most injured positions on the Commanders are receiver and defensive end. They signed Drake Jackson. They signed Treylon Burks, both former first and second round picks. So got no problem with that. As we agreed last stream, Zacchaeus would have been the better receiver to keep over Dyami. Yes, I remember us having that conversation, Uncle Bozo, which is still a name that I love. Zacchaeus, let me look up his numbers. Last year, what did Zacchaeus do? Last year, he had 45 receptions for 506 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dyami Brown last season had 30 catches for 308 yards and a touchdown. Dyami Brown is getting $10 million for 1 year with the Jaguars. Zacchaeus is getting 1 year, $1.5 million with the Bears. So I'm definitely more in favor of keeping Zacchaeus in that spot. How old is Zacchaeus? He's 28. Dyami's 25. I'm sure that played a role, but still 1 year deals for the both of them. Even though Dyami is 25, they didn't exactly invest in him for the long term. So I feel like that would have been the best option possible. Guys, I am out of my talking points that I really wanted to get to. So if anybody's got anything, feel free to throw it in the stream. If you are joining me here, once again, make sure you have hit that like button. Helps me out tremendously. I guess one of the things that we could talk about is Cliff Kingsbury kind of being the what's the phrase? The straw that stirs the drink. Cliff Kingsbury's not holding back, man. Now he's not going scorched earth at all, but he opened his press conference today. The very first thing he said was, we just haven't had the same core group of guys practicing together since the offseason, since minicamp. And he's the one who back over the summer was telling Terry, like, hey, you got to get your butt to practice. He's the one who said something about you're in the building, you've got to start practicing. The next day, the Commanders elevate Terry from the PUP list and say he's able to play. And that's when the holdout officially begins, or the hold in officially begins. Cliff's not holding back, and I appreciate that. When I watch his demeanor, when I listen to the things he says, he does seem like he's kind of over all of it, and I don't blame him. DQ, as the head coach, has been caught up in everything, and he can't really escape it. Joe Witt Jr.'s got his own problems with the defense. Cliff is kind of sitting back like, I've got my quarterback. Commanders still 7th in the NFL in scoring. They had the number 1 rushing attack going into that Bears game. I think they've dropped down to number 2, number 3 since then. But Cliff does seem like he's a little bit over it. And when I was having a talk on a previous live stream about which coaches are the most safe and whose seats are the hottest, ironically, I think Joe Witt Jr. has the hottest seat. I think DQ is after him. I think Cliff is 3rd. So is there a world in which DQ gets fired and Cliff gets promoted to head coach, or he gets the interview for head coach? It's all out there. It's a possibility. Jayden deserves to be married with an offensive-minded coach. At the very least, he deserves to be married with a boy genius sort of offensive coordinator. Cliff is a good offensive coordinator. I'm not here to say that he's great. He has some phenomenal designs. Can't say that enough. I was calling for him to open up the downfield passing playbook a lot more. Now, over the last 2 weeks, he has done that. Jayden's yards per attempt against the Chargers was 8.1, and then on Monday, I want to say it was 8.6. I might have got those flipped, but one of them was 8.1, one of them was 8.6. Last year, he only averaged 7.4. And he's doing this despite Jayden having the lesser receivers, having the Chris Moores and the T. Martins and the Corey Brookses on the field. So if he continues to do that, the play design stays excellent, and he just doesn't have those weird games like against the Packers where he basically didn't even try to run the ball from the beginning, and when he did, it was Eckler through the A-gap. If he can just cut down some of that stuff, I would be ready to say Cliff would be an excellent offensive coordinator. Not there just yet, but I think he's good. Burks signed. Yes, we have seen that. Burks expect a quick elevation off the practice squad. That's according to Ian Rappaport. I don't know what that means. Does that mean he's playing on Sunday? Is that further confirmation Terry's not playing on Sunday? Got to wait and see, my friends. Not only does not having the same group of guys affect the offense, but also the defense. They're practicing with only backups and facing top talent on Sundays. This is correct, first of all, but this is a massively important detail that you've just brought up. So back in the offseason, when there was this hype that the Commanders' local media wanted you to believe that the Commanders had a top 10 secondary in the league. Quan Martin was going to have a Pro Bowl year. Mike Sanders still was an All-Pro. The old Marshawn Lattimore was back. Trey Amos looks like a stud. Trey Amos is a stud. But the first 3, it hasn't panned out. A big reason they were saying that is something I was saying at the time is before we go crowning them, let's remember who they're going against in practice. They're going against Luke McCaffrey. They're going against Jaylin Lane. Yeah, they're going against Deebo, but Deebo's not a true receiver. They're going against Michael Strachan and Jacoby Jones and Tamar wasn't even there. Corey Brooks. Those are the players they're going against. So if they aren't shutting them down, if they aren't locking them up, that's a huge issue. That is the bare minimum expectation for them. So to now see them going against these top receivers and it's not working, yes, Omar, to your point here, I think that is greatly influenced by them not having great practice partners. Do you think the coaches listen to any of the podcasts and these videos? Most likely not. I would say some players do. They'll probably never address it. And I don't think the players are listening because they particularly care. I honestly think they probably listen for motivation, try to hear what some of the quote-unquote haters are saying. There are some haters out there. I'm not going to say that. But yeah, I don't think the coaches are listening. They might have people in the ear, like they might have family members, kids, might be some members of the front office who hear things and then they relay it. But I don't think it's from someone like me. I think it's probably from someone like Grant and Danny on the radio or guys like that. I don't think it's from YouTubers. What's your take on whether they should have kept Zane Gonzalez versus replacing him with Matt Gay? Zane had his problems. Matt Gay also has his problems. Considering Matt Gay's making more guaranteed money in NFL history than any kicker, I would have kept Zane at this point, but neither one of them would have really been my pick. And this also isn't hindsight. This isn't recency bias. Matt Gay was 3 for 9 on kicks from 50 plus last year. The only way that I could justify that is he was basically perfect inside of those distances last year. So if the thought was, hey, we're going to continue going for it on 4th down basically every time we get there, which is what the Commanders did last year, best 4th down team in NFL history, I could justify it by saying, well, the Commanders they're not going to kick from 50 plus, because if they get to 4th and anything inside of 5 and they're inside the 50-yard line, really if they've got the ball at midfield, they're just going to go for it on fourth down. So you don't need somebody with a strong leg. Because they're not doing that, because the fourth down aggressiveness hasn't been there, now it looks like a really dumb move. That's what I would say. Just found this channel this week. It's quickly becoming my favorite Commanders channel. Thanks. Now, Jack Package. Am I reading that name the way that it's supposed to be? We're just going to let that slide. But I appreciate you being here, and I do appreciate everybody being here as always. In your opinion, what's more likely this offseason? Cliff leaving the job offering or being elevated to head coach pay raise? AP and Cliff seem to have a close relationship, maybe even closer than his and DQ. The whole brotherhood piece of this with the coaches is something that I've thought about. I believe that AP is cutthroat and cold-blooded because he was with Terry, and AP is no stranger. That might have been his first year with the team last year, but he also knows what Terry means to the team. He knows what Terry means to the team. He knows his importance. He knows how he's the lifeblood of everything. And yet he was willing to say, I'm not paying you the money you want. It's just not happening. I'm willing to play hardball. I'm willing to let you practice, and I'm not going to budge. So I don't doubt that if DQ underperforms, Joe Witt Jr. underperforms, if Cliff underperforms, I don't doubt AP would be willing to fire them. My question is, because this is the first regime of the new era, and because everything is about brotherhood, specifically Dan Quinn too, even more so than Joe Witt Jr., but because Dan Quinn is the one saying, we are brothers, I got your back all the time, anybody, anywhere, any place, which, by the way, I haven't heard him say that at all this year. Don't know what happened to that. I am a little concerned about how it's going to be received inside the locker room if the time comes when they do have to fire one of these coaches, because it's going to happen. Coaches have to get fired at some point. But from the culture they've created, it's just something that is on my mind. And it could be the right thing to do. Again, if we finish this year and the defense still sucks and the team is 7-10, DQ might deserve to get fired. At the very least, Joe Witt Jr. would most likely get fired. DQ would be on the hot seat because he's a defensive head coach. He'll be the defense letting the team down. But to answer this question, Cliff leaving for a job, Cliff made it very clear. He's already been hired and fired by an NFL team before. He knows the importance of being in the right situation. He was Caleb's offensive coordinator at USC. He saw Caleb be the first pick, go to the Bears. And of course, the head coach gets fired there. And then the interim head coach is not retained from that point on. So he knows the importance of being in a good spot. If it's another awful team, I don't know, the Titans, maybe because they have Cam Ward. I don't know what Cliff's feelings are on Cam Ward. But if it's a terrible team, if the Cleveland Browns want to hire him, he's probably going to turn it down again. If there's a legitimate, promising opening that comes available, I could see him leaving. I could. I also don't think he's at a spot where he's going to need a pay raise right now, just because I don't think the team's going to be good enough. Last year, it almost felt like that was a concern. You got to pay Cliff more to keep him around. I don't think that's going to happen this year. DQ is rough on kickers. He destroyed Seibert in the first Cowboys game last year. What did he do? What did he do? What do you mean he's rough on kickers? What do you mean he's rough on kickers? Seibert in the first Cowboys game, he came back with I think it was a groin or a hip injury that he didn't tell anybody about, and it contributed to him missing that extra point at the end of the game. And I think he got cut right after that, which he deserved to. Want to make that clear. If he had this injury and he didn't know about it, and it leads to a missed extra point in a game you could have won, you deserve to go for that. But if there's something else, like if DQ said something, I don't remember it, so feel free to let me know in the comments. I can foresee Baltimore or Cincy being available. Zach Taylor needs to be out of there, 100%. Cincy should be available. I did see a report earlier today that there's no expectation that Harbaugh is at risk of losing his job. Everybody said as soon as Harbaugh would hit the open market, he would be the top guy available. Everybody would be reaching out to him. So I know why you would put Baltimore in there. I'm just telling you, I read a report today that it's not going to happen. But Cincinnati, yes, getting to work with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, Cliff as an offensive guy, that would be a good spot for him. Guys, I don't have anything else here. So unless we get some last-second comments here, I'm probably going to head out, give you guys another 30 to 60 seconds or so, just see if anything rolls in. Having a lot of fun live stream. This is 3 days in a row. pretty much only have done videos on the channel before, but streams have been fun. Seems like they're doing pretty well. Hope you guys appreciate it. If you did like this one, make sure you leave it a like as well, like I already said. Got no new comments rolling in, so I think that's my cue to get on out of here. I'll be back with at least one video tomorrow, maybe two. Maybe we'll get another stream in. I don't know. But if you did join me here, I appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your evening, and I'll catch you all in the next one.